Welcome. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Let your body settle into the bed. Let the weight of the day begin to soften and release. And when you are ready, let your eyes close. Take one slow, gentle breath, and then let it go. Tonight, as you drift, you will gently come to understand a little of what the Buddha taught about the quiet mind, and you do not need to concentrate at all. Simply let the words wash over you, and let the understanding arrive on its own, softly, like warmth. There is a teaching that begins not with words, but with a breath. Long before the ideas were written down, long before they traveled across oceans and centuries, and found their way into quiet rooms like this one, there was simply a man sitting beneath a tree, breathing slowly, watching the way his own mind moved. He was not reaching for anything. He was not straining toward some distant truth. He was only sitting, only breathing. And in that stillness, something in him began to settle, the way water settles when you stop stirring it, slowly finding its own level, growing clear. You might imagine it now if you like. A tree, very old, with wide, heavy branches that hang low and still. The light beneath it is soft and green and dim, filtered through leaves that barely move. The air is warm and quiet. There is the faint sound of something distant, perhaps water, perhaps wind in long grass. But it is gentle, and it asks nothing of you. And beneath the tree, there is only stillness. Only the soft, slow rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. Let your own breath be a little like that now. Not forced, not measured, just easy and slow, arriving and leaving on its own, the way a tide moves in the dark, unhurried and soft. The Buddha, whose name before he became the Buddha was simply a human name, a name like any other, sat beneath that tree for a long time. And what he found there, what slowly came to him in the quiet, was not a thunderbolt of revelation or a sharp sudden knowing. It was something gentler than that. It was more like a gradual dissolving, the way ice softens at the edges before it becomes water, the way a knot in a length of rope, if you hold it lightly and work it very slowly, eventually loosens on its own. Let the shoulders drop now, just a little, if they wish to. There is nothing to hold up. What the Buddha began to understand, sitting there in the warm and quiet beneath the tree, was something about the nature of the mind itself. Not the contents of the mind, not the thoughts and memories and worries and hopes that pass through it, but the mind itself, the space in which all of those things move. He noticed that the mind, left to its own habits, tends to grip. It reaches for the things it wants, and it pushes away the things it does not want. And in that constant reaching and pushing, it tires itself. It exhausts itself. It never quite rests, because there is always something new to reach for, always something new to push away. And the suffering that comes from this, he saw, is not some grand catastrophe. It is quieter than that. It is more like a kind of low, persistent restlessness, a sense that something is not quite right, that something is missing or out of place, that rest is always just a little further away than where you are. You may have felt something like that yourself, from time to time. That feeling of reaching without quite arriving. That faint, soft ache of wanting things to be just slightly different than they are. But here, now, in the dark and the quiet, there is no reaching needed. Let the jaw soften. Let the hands rest open if they wish to. There is nothing to hold. The Buddha's first great insight was this, that suffering arises from craving, and craving here does not mean only the obvious things, the hungers and the ambitions and the great wants. It also means the small, constant, barely noticed pull of the mind towards something other than what is here. The wish for the room to be a little warmer or a little cooler. The half-formed hope that tomorrow will go a certain way. The faint, sleepy resistance to letting the day go. And the teaching is not that you should force yourself not to want these things. It is softer than that. It is more like an invitation to notice the wanting itself, to see it gently, without judgment, the way you might notice a cloud drifting slowly across a dark sky. You do not need to chase the cloud. You do not need to hold it back. You simply see it, and in the seeing, it begins to move on by itself. Everything moves on by itself when you stop holding it. Imagine the mind as a still, dark pond. When thoughts arise, they are like small stones dropping into the surface, and the ripples move outward slowly, gently, and then grows smaller and smaller until the water is smooth again. The water does not mind the ripples. It simply returns, always and easily, to stillness. That is its nature. That is the nature of the mind too, beneath all the movement. Somewhere beneath the ripples, there is always stillness. Let a slow breath move through you now. There is no hurry. There is nowhere to go. One of the most tender and quiet teachings in the Buddhist tradition is something called impermanence. In the old language, it is called by a soft word that means, roughly, the passing nature of all things. And it is not a sad teaching, though it might sound like one at first. It is, when you settle into it, one of the most restful truths there is. Everything that arises, passes. Every sensation that comes into the body moves through and moves on. Every thought that surfaces in the mind floats there for a moment and then drifts away. Every feeling, even the heavy ones, even the ones that seem like they will stay forever, are already, even as you feel them, beginning their slow dissolve. The pain in the shoulder softens. The worry that seemed so large in the afternoon grows thin and quiet in the dark. The alertness of the day grows heavy. The thoughts that kept arriving and arriving begin to space themselves further and further apart, like footsteps in soft snow, growing slower, growing quieter, until there is only the space between them. Nothing lasts. And in the quiet of a dark room, that truth is not frightening. It is like a gentle hand on the back, a soft voice saying, "You do not have to hold this. Let it pass. It will pass on its own. Let the legs be heavy. Let the arms rest without effort. Let the body be held by the bed, completely, without you having to do anything at all." There is another teaching that moves like a slow river through all of Buddhist thought, and it is this, that you are not your thoughts. The mind generates thoughts the way the body generates warmth. They arise, they move, they fade. But the part of you that notices the thoughts, the quiet awareness behind the movement, that part is still. That part is always still. It does not think. It only knows. In the old texts, this awareness is sometimes compared to the sky. The thoughts are clouds. They come in all shapes, some light and wispy, some heavy and dark, and they move across the sky, and they change, and they pass. But the sky itself is always there, unchanging, untroubled. The sky does not become the cloud. It only holds the space in which the cloud appears. You are the sky now, not the clouds. Let any thought that surfaces simply float. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to understand it, or solve it, or hold it. It is already moving. It is already drifting toward the edge of the sky, and in a moment it will be gone, and there will be only the wide, quiet blue, the vast and gentle stillness that was always there beneath the movement. The Buddha taught for many years after that quiet morning beneath the tree. He walked slowly through warm landscapes, along dusty roads, and by the edges of slow rivers. He sat with people who were tired. He sat with people who were afraid. He sat with people who had lost things they loved and were not sure how to go on. And to all of them, the teaching was always the same at its deepest root. Be here. Be quiet. Let the breath be the anchor. Let the moment be enough. Let the mind, just for now, release its grip on everything it has been carrying, and rest. Just rest. The bed is warm beneath you. The blanket, if you have one, is soft and heavy and close. The room is dark and still, and there is nothing in it that asks anything of you. The whole world outside is very far away right now, and growing further. It can manage without you for a few hours. It always does. You can let it go. There is a phrase used sometimes in meditation traditions, gentle and old, that goes something like this. Not this, not this. It is a way of gently setting things down. A thought arises. Not this. A worry surfaces. Not this. A plan begins to form. Not this. Not now. Not here. Not tonight. Tonight is for breathing. Tonight is for resting. Tonight is for the slow, soft descent into somewhere deep and quiet, where the mind finally stops its wandering and lies down. Think of the breath as a tide moving in, slow and easy and inevitable. You do not breathe on purpose right now. The body breathes by itself, the way a tide moves by itself, because the sea has its own rhythm that does not need your help. In and out, slow and soft. The chest rises and falls like something sleeping on the surface of still water, barely moving, barely disturbed. The Buddha spoke often about the middle way, not the path of striving, not the path of forcing, not the hard and exhausting road of always trying to be something other than what you are, but not the path of carelessness either, something in between, something gentle, something like what you are doing right now, without even trying to do it, lying here in the warm dark, letting the body be soft, letting the thoughts drift, neither pushing them away nor following them, just breathing and settling and allowing. The middle way, in this moment, feels like a bed. It feels like the exact weight of warmth above you and support beneath you. It feels like the absence of effort. It feels like permission. You have permission to rest now. All the things you did today, whatever they were, they are finished. They are done. They cannot be added to or taken from right now. They exist somewhere in the past, which is a very quiet place, very still, very far from this warm room. And all the things that tomorrow will bring, they exist somewhere ahead, in a place that is not yet here, a place that does not need your attention in the dark. There is only now, only this breath, only this soft, settling moment. In the tradition of the Buddha, there is a practice of simply watching the breath, not controlling it, not making it deeper or slower or different in any way, only watching it, the way you might watch a candle flame in a still room, soft and close and gentle, the flame barely moving, the light very warm and very dim, watching the breath arrive, watching it leave, watching the brief and quiet pause between the two, that small, still place where neither inhale nor exhale is happening, where the body is simply resting in between. That pause is very quiet. It is one of the quietest places in the whole of human experience, even quieter than sleep perhaps, a moment of pure stillness, sandwiched between two soft movements of air. You can rest there, in that pause, for as long as it lasts. And then the next breath comes, soft and warm, and you let it come, and you let it fill you gently, and then you let it go. Let it go. There is a gentleness at the heart of what the Buddha taught that is easy to miss if you look at it too quickly. People sometimes think of ancient spiritual teachings as demanding things, as requiring effort and discipline and a kind of fierce attention. And there is practice in the Buddhist tradition, yes, and practice takes time and patience. But underneath the practice, underneath the forms and the teachings and the long tradition of monks and teachers and quiet monasteries at the edges of forests, underneath all of that, there is something very simple and very soft. It is simply this: you are already, right now, essentially at peace. The peace is not something you have to create or earn or travel toward. It is already present, like warmth that was always in the room that you only notice when you stop moving around. When the noise grows quiet, when the body grows still, when the thoughts begin to slow and space themselves apart, what remains is not emptiness. It is not nothing. It is something that feels a little like coming home to a very quiet house at the end of a very long day and setting everything down by the door and feeling the stillness of the rooms around you and breathing out, slowly, all the way. That is the peace that was there all along. And it is here now, in this room, in this breath, in the soft weight of the body settling further into the bed, sinking a little deeper, releasing a little more, the muscles of the face going soft, the space behind the eyes growing dim and quiet, the thoughts arriving less and less often now, each one a little softer than the one before, a little more willing to drift and dissolve before it fully forms. The old stories say that on the night the Buddha sat beneath the tree, the darkness around him was very soft. The air was still. The stars, if there were stars, were distant and quiet, and they did not demand anything. They only shone, slowly, in the vast and peaceful dark. And he breathed, and the world breathed with him. And in the breathing, something that had been held for a very long time, something old and tight and weary, slowly, gently loosened, released, like a knot that had been held so long it had forgotten it was a knot, and then, in the stillness, in the soft and patient dark, remembered that it did not have to be. There is something in that image that belongs to you tonight, something in the idea of a thing slowly releasing that it has been holding without knowing it. The jaw, perhaps, the shoulders, the small, quiet tension behind the eyes that has been there so long you stopped noticing it was there. The body carries so much, so quietly, for so long. It asks very little in return. Only this, only the chance, in the dark, in the warmth, to let it all gradually soften and subside. Let the jaw be loose now. Let the throat be soft. Let the hands uncurl, if they have been curled, and rest open on the bed, the fingers slightly parted, the palms turned gently upward or downward, whichever way feels like stillness. The body knows how to rest. It has always known. It was made for this, the long, slow restoration of the night, the quiet work that happens without your guidance, the breathing and the settling, and the deep, interior mending that sleep performs so gently, so completely, every single night. The Buddha taught something that can be said very softly and still be heard. He taught that suffering, in its many forms, tends to come from holding on, from gripping, from the quiet, exhausting effort of trying to make permanent what is by its nature always changing, always drifting, always on its way from one soft shape to another. The beautiful things we want to keep, the pleasant feelings we want to continue, the comfortable moments we want to hold still. And in the holding, something tightens. In the gripping, something grows tired. But when the hand opens, when the grip softens, when the moment is simply allowed to be what it is and to drift where it drifts, the tightness eases, the tiredness rests. There is something left behind that is quieter and wider and altogether more comfortable than the thing you were holding so carefully. You don't have to hold anything right now. Not a single thing in the whole world needs to be held by you, in this moment, in the dark. You can set it all down, the plans, the memories, the unfinished conversations, the things that went well today and the things that did not. All of it can be set down here, gently, the way you might set a full tray down on a table and hear the small, soft sound of it coming to rest, and then step back and breathe and feel how light your arms are now that they are empty. Your arms are empty now. Your hands are empty. Your mind can be empty too, or nearly so, the thoughts growing thin and infrequent, like the last few leaves drifting from a tree at the very end of autumn, each one taking a long, slow, spiraling path downward through still air, turning gently, unhurried, settling at last on the quiet ground below. Let the thoughts fall like that. Let them drift and settle. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to watch where they land. You can simply be the still air they drift through, wide and quiet, and not belonging to any of them. There is a word that drifts through the oldest teachings, like a soft current, moving through deep water. The word is metta. It means, in its gentlest translation, something like loving kindness. Something like warmth directed outward and inward both, a soft and open wish for well-being that does not strain or demand but simply radiates. The way warmth radiates from something that has been gently heated and now glows without effort, giving off its warmth into the surrounding air. The practice of metta is very simple and very quiet. It begins close. It begins with oneself, with you, lying here, in the dark, in the warmth. The tradition offers something like this: may you be at peace, may you be well, may you be at ease. Not as commands, not as instructions. More like a quiet wish, offered inward the way you might offer a warm drink to someone tired, gently, without expectation, simply because they are there and they are weary and warmth is something you have enough of to share. May you be at ease. And it is true right now. Something in you is at ease, perhaps not entirely. Perhaps there is still a small thread of the day caught somewhere, a faint hum of the world still turning in the back of the mind. But around that small thread, and beneath it, and above it, there is ease. There is the quiet of the room. There is the soft weight of the blanket. There is the body, good and patient body, already doing the slow, faithful work of letting go. The practice of metta, in the old tradition, moves outward in gentle circles, like rings expanding on the surface of water, after a single, very soft drop falls at the center, beginning with oneself and then drifting outward, very gently, to those who are close. Family, friends, loved ones in other rooms, in other cities, in other dark and sleeping nights of their own, each one of them lying somewhere in the world tonight, breathing, resting, or trying to rest, or somewhere between the two, each one of them carrying their own quiet weight, their own small worries, their own collection of moments that meant something, and moments that passed without leaving a trace. There is something very soft in that thought, something that loosens a little further in the chest when you let yourself feel it, that everyone, everywhere, is trying in their own quiet way. Everyone is resting when they can. Everyone is hoping for peace, in the form that peace takes for them, in their own language, in their own darkness, under their own particular weight of warmth and blanket and night. The rings of metta expand further, in the tradition, out past the people you know, and into the wider, quieter world. Strangers resting in rooms you will never see, cities settling into their night sounds, forests standing very still under the dark sky, the trees barely moving, the leaves turning only slightly in a soft and almost imperceptible breeze. Animals curled in the dark, warm and small, and breathing slowly. The sea still doing what it always does, moving and breathing and receiving and releasing, not because anyone asked it to, but because that is its nature, and its nature is enough. All of that is happening, right now, in the world beyond this room, and you are part of it. You are one warm, breathing, softly settling thing in the middle of an enormous and quietly living world. Nothing is required of you right now. The world will continue its slow and patient existence while you rest. The forests will stand, the sea will move. The cities will murmur and settle and gradually quiet toward morning, and you will sleep. The Buddha, in some of the oldest accounts, spoke of the mind the way someone might speak of a body of water. Disturbed water, churned by wind or movement, cannot show a clear reflection. It catches light in broken pieces. It shifts and splinters the image of whatever looks into it. But still water, deep and quiet and undisturbed, reflects perfectly. It holds the image of whatever is above it, the sky, the clouds, the distant soft light, and holds it steadily, without effort, simply by being what it is when nothing disturbs it. The mind, when it is quiet, is something like that. Not empty, but clear. Not blank, but still. Able to hold whatever arises without breaking it apart, without churning it into confusion, without adding to it the noise of old worries or future fears. Just the clear, still surface, and whatever moves across it, moving softly, and then passing on. Your mind is growing quieter now. You can feel it, perhaps, the way the thoughts are spacing themselves a little further apart, the way there is more room between one thought and the next, more space, more quiet, more of that warm, open, dimly lit interior stillness that is neither asleep nor quite awake, but somewhere between the two, which is its own kind of rest, its own kind of peace. The old word for this, in the tradition, is somewhere between wakefulness and dream, the place the mind visits on its way down into sleep, where thoughts lose their sharp edges and begin to look like something else, like shapes seen through water, or shadows on a wall cast by a light too dim to make them definite. The thoughts are still there, but they are gentle now. They are losing their grip on you, and you are losing, very willingly, very peacefully, your grip on them. There is a story, very old, and told very softly, of a student who came to sit with a teacher and asked how to quiet the mind. The teacher said nothing for a very long time, simply sat, breathing slowly, while the evening came on around them, and the light grew soft, and the birds outside became gradually still. And after the long quiet, the teacher said only this: the mind quiets itself when you stop asking it to be loud. That is all. That is the whole of it, perhaps. Not a struggle, not a discipline, not an achievement. Only a gentle ceasing of the demand. Only a stepping back from the noise, the way you might step back from a conversation that does not need your voice, and simply let the quiet fill the space you were occupying with your effort. The quiet fills the space very naturally. It was always there, waiting just outside the noise, patient and warm, and perfectly capable of arriving the moment it was given room. It is arriving now. Something in the chest is softer. Something behind the eyes is dim. The body is heavier in a way that feels like kindness, like the weight of the bed rising to meet you, like being held rather than simply lying still. The breath is slower, and you are not making it slower. It has found its own pace, the pace the body knows to take when it is ready, when the signals that have been passing quietly from somewhere very deep have finally said, now. Now is the time. Rest now. Let go now. There is nothing more to do. and the chest falls, and the breath drifts out, and the room is very quiet. In some translations of the old texts, the word for peace also carries within it the sense of coolness, a cool, clear, untroubled quality, the way a shaded room feels on a warm day, not cold, not uncomfortable, simply refreshed, simply undisturbed, simply the absence of heat that is also the presence of something easier. Peace as a kind of coolness, as the absence of friction, as the feeling of sliding slowly into still water and feeling it close softly over you, warm and accepting, and letting yourself drift without resistance, without effort, downward and inward, and quieter still. That coolness, that smooth and frictionless quality, is in the breath. It is in the slow movement of air arriving and departing. It is in the space between thoughts. It is in the weight of the eyelids, which are so naturally, so effortlessly, so completely heavy now, closed and still, the darkness behind them soft and deep and perfectly comfortable. You are drifting. You are drifting very gently, the way a boat drifts on still water when the oar has been laid down and the current is so slow it is barely a current at all, barely a movement, barely a suggestion of direction, only the faintest, most imperceptible drawing of something warm and quiet towards somewhere quieter still. The monasteries in the old tradition were built at the edges of things, at the edges of forests, at the edge of hills, at the soft boundary between the cultivated and the wild, between the known and the vast, open, unhurried world beyond knowing. There was wisdom in that placing. Something about the edge, the threshold, the gentle in-between, seems to carry its own quality of rest. Not inside and not outside, not awake and not asleep, not here and not yet somewhere else. Simply at the edge, breathing, waiting without urgency for whatever comes next to arrive in its own time. You are at the edge now, that soft and spacious threshold. The world of the day is very far behind you, growing quieter with each breath, each slow release, each moment of simply resting here, without requiring anything of yourself or the night. And ahead, not something you are pushing toward, not something you are trying to reach, only the natural arrival of something that comes when it comes, when the conditions are right, when the body is soft enough, and the breath is slow enough, and the mind has grown still enough to allow it. Sleep is very close. It moves in the way that sleep moves, not with a sound or a shape, but with a gradual, comfortable dimming, a slow softening of the edges of things, a gentle dissolving of the line between thinking and dreaming, between here and the soft country that exists, just on the other side of waking. The breath is very slow now. The body is very still. The thoughts are very few and very far away, like lights seen at a great distance on a clear, dark night, not calling you toward them, not asking anything, only shining very softly in the far and quiet dark. The room is warm, the blanket is soft, the darkness behind the closed eyes is deep and perfect, and without any edges at all, only a soft and open darkness that asks nothing, holds nothing, keeps nothing away. There is a word that moves through the old teachings like a slow river through a very quiet valley. It is the word for letting things be as they are, not forcing them into shapes they were not meant to hold, not insisting on arrangements the moment did not offer, simply allowing, simply receiving what is here without adding anything to it, without subtracting anything from it, without leaning toward it or away from it, only resting in the simple fact of its presence, the way you might rest beside a slow fire in a room you do not need to arrange or improve, a room that is already exactly right, already everything a room needs to be, warm and dim and quietly itself. That quality of allowing is not passive in any tired or resigned sense. It is not giving up. It is something softer and stranger and more restful than giving up. It is the recognition that the moment does not require your management, that the night is doing what the night does very well on its own, that the breath is moving without your guidance, that the body knows the way into rest as surely as the river knows the way to the sea, not because it has been instructed, not because it has been shown, but because the knowledge is older than instruction, older than teaching, older than the words the teachers use to describe it. The river does not think about flowing. The breath does not think about breathing. The dark behind the closed eyes does not think about deepening. These things simply occur, the way very gentle things occur, the way the temperature of a room gradually settles into something comfortable, without anyone deciding it should, without any effort, without any announcement. Only the slow, quiet arrival of the thing that was always on its way. Something is loosening now in the very deep places. In the places beneath the places you normally think of as your body. In the floor of things. In the long, slow muscles that have been holding all day without being asked to hold, without anyone requesting their effort, only receiving it quietly, and without acknowledgement, the way the ground receives the weight of everything placed upon it, steadily, without complaint, without notice. Those muscles are remembering, now, that they are allowed to let go, that the ground will continue to receive the weight, that nothing falls when they soften, only settles, only sinks a little further into the warmth and the darkness and the deep accommodation of the bed beneath you, which has been waiting patiently for exactly this degree of softness, exactly this degree of release. The teachers in the old tradition spoke often of a quality they called luminous. They meant it gently. They did not mean something bright or dazzling or demanding of attention. They meant a quality more like the light that remains in a room after a candle has been covered, a soft residual glow, a warmth without a source, something that is neither light nor dark but partakes of both, a kind of middle quality, a threshold quality, the quality of dusk in a room where no one has yet thought to light a lamp, and no one needs to, because the remaining light is exactly enough, exactly appropriate, exactly what the moment asks for. That luminous quality is in the mind right now. In the soft space behind the closed eyes, where thought has grown so thin and slow that it is more like the trace a thought leaves than a thought itself. The way a hand drawn slowly through still water leaves a temporary, widening, gradually disappearing mark that is not the hand and not the water, but briefly, gently, the passage of one through the other. The thoughts are the passage of something through something else. They are not yours to keep. They arrive and they widen, and they slowly dissolve, and the water is as still as it was before, as still as it will be long after, undisturbed in any lasting way, open and receiving, and quietly itself. You do not need to follow any of them. You do not need to note where they went. There is nowhere they need to go that requires your attendance. They move on their own, the way clouds move across a sky that remains perfectly, spaciously itself, regardless of what drifts through it. The sky is not changed by the cloud. The mind is not changed by the thought. Only the thought changes, growing thinner, growing softer, growing gradually transparent, until the soft light that was always behind it shows through. In the old monasteries, the monks rose before the light, to sit in the dark and be still. This is not something you are being asked to do. There is no effort here. But there is something in the image worth holding for a moment, before releasing it, as you release all things now, gently and without regret. The image of a figure sitting very still in the last of the darkness before dawn, not waiting exactly, not watching exactly, only present in the way that a stone is present at the bottom of a stream, receiving the cold, clear water over it, without resistance, without effort, becoming over a very long time something smoother and more beautiful, not because of anything it chose to do, but simply because it allowed the water to move over it, again and again, without flinching, without holding on. Something is moving over you now in the same way, something slow and cool and kind and very gentle. It is the current of the night. The long, unhurried movement of hours that asks nothing of you, carries nothing you need to lift, brings nothing that needs your attention. Only the current. Only the slow passage of the dark and the quiet and the warmth of the room over the warmth of the body that lies still within it, growing heavier and softer and quieter with every passing moment, with every breath released, with every small and gradual loosening of the things that were held without knowing they were held. The jaw is soft, the brow is soft. There is space behind the eyes that is easy and open and without any quality of looking, only a soft and inward openness, the way a room is open when it is empty and warm, and the curtains are drawn, and there is no reason to attend to anything, because there is nothing asking for attention, only the quiet, only the dimness, only the very comfortable and completely ordinary fact of being here, at rest, in the dark, breathing slowly. The old teachings returned again and again to the image of water. It was one of the favorite images of the calm traditions, not only the Buddhist path but many of the quiet traditions that arose in the places where contemplation was valued, where slowness was understood as a kind of wisdom, where the person who could sit beside a stream without needing to be anywhere else was considered to have understood something important about the nature of things. Water was the image because water is not rigid, because water does not insist on its shape, because water, placed in a vessel, simply becomes the shape of the vessel without protest, without loss of its essential nature, without becoming less than it was. Water takes the shape offered to it and remains, entirely and without apology, water. The mind at rest is like that, not empty, not blank, not absent, only flexible, only undemanding of itself, only willing to take the shape the moment offers without insisting on a different shape, without holding the shape of the previous moment after the previous moment has passed, without anticipating the shape of the moment still to come. Only this shape, only now, only the soft, liquid quality of awareness that holds what is here without gripping it, that receives the next thing without bracing for it, that releases the last thing without reaching back. The body is the vessel, and the awareness is the water, and the water is perfectly still now, perfectly settled into every curve and corner of the vessel it inhabits, not a restless or uncertain kind of settling, but the final, complete, deeply comfortable settling of something that has found its level and come to rest there. There is a phrase from the old texts that moves like a slow wave when you hear it in the language it was first spoken. Translated, it arrives in English as something like, "And so the night passed quietly." That is all. And so the night passed quietly. No drama, no event, no arrival and no departure worth noting. Only the quiet passage of the night over the stillness of those who rested within it. And so the night passed quietly. You can let that phrase be the whole of what is happening right now. The whole description of this moment, and all the moments that follow it, and all the moments after those, stretching forward through the long and generous dark, unhurried, uncomplicated, soft. And so the night passes quietly. Something in the chest has found a rhythm so slow now that each breath feels like a small and complete thing in itself. Not part of a series, not one of many, only this breath, the one that is happening now, the long, slow warmth of it arriving, filling the chest without effort, the soft weight of it resting there for a moment in perfect stillness, and then the long, slow release, the warmth departing, the chest settling lower, the body settling deeper, the darkness settling over everything in a way that has no weight to it at all, or only the gentlest and most welcome weight, the weight of a soft covering laid by careful hands over something that is already resting, already peaceful, already not quite in the waking world anymore. The teachers described the path not as a climbing, but as a settling. This is important, and it arrives very softly in the mind, and asks nothing of you. Only offers itself as a gentle fact to rest beside, not a climbing, not an achieving, not a reaching upward towards something better than this, only a settling, the way sediment settles in still water when the disturbance has passed and the water is allowed to be still again, the way the dust settles in a room that has been closed and quieted, everything finding its natural level, everything returning to the place it was always wanting to occupy when it was given the chance. You are settling now. Each breath is a little of the settling. Each moment of stillness is a little more of it. There is no end point to arrive at. There is no particular degree of settled that you are working toward. Only the process itself, the beautiful and unhurried and endlessly gentle process of settling further and further into the stillness that has been here all along, waiting beneath the noise and the motion and the effort of the day, as deep and as patient and as permanent as the ground beneath the earth. The room is so quiet, the warmth of it is so complete. There is nothing asking for your attention in this room. No sound, no light, no movement. Only the slow and regular passage of your own breath into and out of the warm and perfectly resting body, which is growing more and more still, more and more heavy, more and more beautifully and completely at ease with every quiet moment that passes over it. In the tradition of the very early wandering teachers, those who walked slowly from place to place and sat beneath trees and in doorways and at the edges of fields and taught anyone who came to sit beside them, there was an understanding that the whole of the teaching could be reduced, at the end, to something very simple, something a child could hold, something that required no scholarship, no memory, no effort of mind, only a quality of attention so soft and so open that it was barely attention at all, only a kind of warm and quiet presence, a being here, a resting in the simple, extraordinary, ordinary fact of existence, without adding anything to it, without asking it to be other than it is, without needing it to be more or less than exactly this. Exactly this, the warmth of the room, the weight of the body in the bed, the slow breath, the soft dark, the feeling of the covers over the hands and the chest and the legs, soft and warm and perfectly weighted, perfectly kind. Exactly this. No more is needed. No more is available, and no more is needed. And the recognition of this is itself a kind of dissolving, a gentle release of the long habit of wanting things to be otherwise, wanting the moment to contain something additional, wanting the quiet to be quieter, or the warmth to be warmer, or the rest to feel more restful than it already does, which is very restful, which is as restful as rest needs to be, which is already entirely and completely enough. The thinking is very slow now. The thoughts that remain are the thin, transparent kind, the kind that drift rather than move, that suggest rather than insist, that arrive already half dissolved, already trailing away, already merging at their soft edges with the darkness and the warmth, and the absence of any need to hold on to anything, to track anything, to keep anything in mind. There is nothing to keep in mind. The night keeps everything. The dark holds everything. The soft interior of this warm and quiet space where the body rests contains everything that needs to be contained, safely and gently, and without any effort on your part, without any management, without any watching. You can stop watching. Everything is in its right place. Everything is as it should be. The room is right, and the dark is right, and the breath is right, and the body is exactly where it needs to be, which is here, which is still, which is settled into the long, warm patience of the night. The patience of the night is extraordinary when you consider it. Though you do not need to consider it, you can simply receive it. The way you receive warmth without considering the nature of warmth. The way you receive the weight of the blanket without considering the nature of weight. Only the receiving. Only the soft and open receiving of the night's extraordinary patience. Its willingness to continue for as long as you need it to continue. Its willingness to be dark for as long as the dark is useful to you. Its willingness to hold the quiet for the whole of the hours between now and the far and gentle morning that is nowhere near yet, that is a great distance away in a direction you are not facing, that will arrive when it arrives in its own slow way, without any assistance from you. For now there is only the night, the long, soft, deeply accommodating night, and the breath within it, and the stillness within that, and within the stillness, something even quieter, something that has no name in any language, something that the teachers pointed toward rather than named, the way you might point toward a quality of light rather than name it, knowing that the pointing is closer to the truth of it than any word could be. They pointed toward it by going quiet, by sitting still, by letting the silence do the work that words could not quite do, by trusting that the person sitting beside them, or across from them, or simply nearby in the same quality of stillness, would feel the pointing in their own body, in their own soft and settling breath, in their own gradual, beautiful, completely natural drifting toward the place that is not quite sleeping and not quite waking, the soft and luminous country at the edge of everything, where the mind at last releases its long grip on the day and opens like a hand that has been holding something for a very long time, slowly, gently, slowly, as if the thing it held were made of light, as if the releasing were itself a kind of gift, a returning of something borrowed back to the vast and generous dark from which it came, and the hand rests open now, and the breath moves through it, and there is nothing to close around, nothing that requires the effort of holding, only the wide and restful openness of a palm turned upward in the dark, receiving nothing, needing nothing, simply open, simply here. And this, the teachers said, or did not say, or suggested by the quality of their silence, is the nature of the mind when it is allowed to be what it is, when it is not asked to perform, or to produce, or to solve, or to remember, when it is given, at last, the permission it has always been waiting for. The permission to simply rest in its own nature, the way water rests in the shape of whatever holds it, without resistance, without preference, filling the space completely and quietly, and without any sense that the filling is an achievement. The water does not congratulate itself for being still. The water does not check to see whether it is still enough. It is simply still, and the stillness is not something it does, but something it is, something it returns to when the wind has passed, and the surface has settled, and the long, slow evening light has come to rest on it like a hand, like a warm and wordless blessing, like the last of the day's warmth finding its way to the surface of everything, and lying there, softly, briefly, before the dark takes it gently and folds it into the night. You are like this. The mind is like this. Beneath whatever moved across it today, beneath the small urgencies and the fleeting worries, and the thoughts that circled and the feelings that passed through like weather, beneath all of that, the surface that they moved across was always still, always undisturbed at its deepest level, always capable of returning to this quality of untroubled quiet, the moment the last of the wind has gone. And the wind has gone now, the last of it. You can feel the absence of it, or you will feel the absence of it soon. The way a room feels different after a sound has stopped, a little larger, a little more itself, a little more softly available to anyone resting inside it. Rest inside it now, inside the stillness of the mind's own deep nature, which requires no maintenance, which asks for nothing, which was never broken and therefore needs no mending, which was always already here, patient as stone, warm as the breath, quiet as the space between one thought and the thought that is not quite arriving yet. In the long afternoons beneath trees, when the light came through the leaves in slow and shifting patterns, and the air was warm and the ground was dry, and the whole world seemed to have settled into a kind of golden suspension, the teaching that happened was not always a teaching of words. Sometimes it was simply a quality of shared attention, a turning of awareness toward the ordinary, toward the breath, toward the feeling of the earth beneath the body, toward the sounds that arrived from the middle distance and passed through without leaving a mark. A bird, the movement of leaves, the sound of water somewhere, further away than it seemed, closer than it needed to be. These things did not need to be examined. They did not need to be named or categorized or understood. They only needed to be received, gently, in the way that the ear receives a sound without effort, the way the skin receives warmth without asking for it, the way the closed eye receives the soft darkness of its own lid and rests in that small, quiet world without wishing it were otherwise. The closed eye knows a great deal about rest. It knows that rest is not an absence but a presence, a quality of being present to the dark and the warmth and the weight of the body and the slow tide of the breath, without adding commentary, without reaching for the next thing, without rehearsing the past or sketching the future. Only here, only now, only this particular moment of this particular night, which is soft and unremarkable, and entirely complete in itself. Entirely complete. There is a teaching in those words that the mind does not need to think about, only feel. The way the body feels complete in the bed, the way the breath feels complete in its slow and easy rhythm, the way the dark feels complete in its soft and seamless covering of everything. Nothing missing, nothing extra, only the gentle sufficiency of what is, resting in itself, asking nothing. This was, perhaps, the most difficult thing for the early students to receive. Not the philosophy, not the careful thinking about the nature of the mind and the causes of suffering and the path that leads gently away from it. Those things could be learned the way anything can be learned, through patience and repetition and the slow settling of ideas into the body of understanding. But this, the simple sufficiency of the present moment, the recognition that nothing additional is needed for this moment to be exactly what it needs to be, this was the thing that could not be taught directly, only pointed at, only circled gently, only suggested by the quality of a voice, or the stillness of a body, or the long, unhurried patience of someone who had already arrived at the place they were pointing toward and was simply waiting, kindly, for the others to find their own way there. And the finding was never forced. It could not be forced. You cannot push someone into stillness. You cannot hurry someone toward rest. You can only create the conditions, the warm and quiet conditions, the unhurried and undemanding conditions, in which rest becomes the most natural thing in the world, the thing the body and the mind lean toward, the way a plant leans slowly toward the light. Not because it is trying, but because leaning is what it does when the conditions are right, when the warmth is in the right direction, when there is nothing preventing the slow and beautiful turning. The conditions are right now. Everything has been arranged, by the night itself, by the dark and the warmth and the weight of the covers, and the soft and steady rhythm of your own breath. Everything has been arranged for the slow and beautiful turning. There is nothing to do but let it happen. There is nothing to do at all. The leaning takes care of itself. The settling takes care of itself. The slow and almost imperceptible drifting takes care of itself. The way all the most important things take care of themselves when the mind has finally grown quiet enough to stop interfering with them. The breath does not need to be managed. The heart does not need to be reminded to beat. The body does not need to be told how to rest. These things know themselves. They have always known themselves. They were knowing themselves long before the mind developed its fondness for commentary, its habit of adding a layer of words and interpretations and small anxieties to the surface of everything, like a light sediment that settles over the simple and beautiful fact of being alive, in a body that breathes in a world that holds the dark in its arms every night and calls it sleep. Sleep. The word itself is soft. Say it without saying it. Hear it without hearing it. Feel the shape of it somewhere in the body, the way certain words have a weight and a temperature that you feel before you understand them. Sleep is a word that knows what it is about. It does not oversell itself. It arrives quietly and waits. And the teachers understood this too, that there are things which must be allowed rather than achieved. Things which arrive only when the striving has stopped, when the effort has been set down the way you set down something heavy at the end of a long walk, with a small exhale, with a loosening of the shoulders, with a sense of the ground rising up to meet the weight you were carrying, and taking it, gently, completely, the way the earth takes everything in the end, with perfect and unhurried acceptance, with no memory of what the effort cost. The effort is over now. Whatever the day required of you, it has been given and received, and the account is settled, and the day has folded itself quietly away into the place where days go, into the soft archive of the past, which asks nothing more of you, which holds what happened with no urgency and no demand for revisiting, which simply keeps, the way a river keeps its course without effort, winding through the landscape of what was, toward the open and unhurried sea. Let it be kept. Let the day be kept by the night, and the night be kept by the dark, and the dark be kept by the slow turning of everything, which continues without your attention, which has never required your attention, which was always and only asking you to rest, even in the middle of the day's most insistent hours. Something beneath everything was asking you to rest, to remember the stillness that underlies the movement, the quiet that underlies the sound, the deep and wordless ease that underlies even the most complicated feelings, like a floor beneath a room, like a ground beneath a floor, like a depth beneath a depth, going down and down into something that has no bottom and no edges and no name. And in the early teachings, this nameless depth was sometimes approached through the image of a flame, a single small flame in a dark room, burning steadily, not urgently, not brilliantly, only softly, only warmly, casting a circle of light that was just large enough for what was needed, and nothing extra, and around it, the dark waiting patiently for the flame to finish its work and grow still. And when the question was asked, gently, where does the flame go when it goes out? The answer was not a location or a direction, but a gesture toward the nature of going, toward the way things dissolve back into what they came from, the way warmth disperses into the air and becomes the air, the way sound disperses into silence and becomes the silence, the way a thought disperses into the quiet of the mind and becomes the quiet, enriching it perhaps, the way rain enriches a field without remaining there as rain, becoming instead the green and the soft and the damp and the slow upward turn of things toward a light they do not see but know. You do not need to follow this image anywhere. You do not need to trace its logic or hold its meaning in the mind. Let it drift past the way the flame itself drifts, wavering very gently in some air too soft to feel. And let the drifting be enough. Let the gentle wavering be enough. Let the soft circle of warmth it casts be enough to rest in. Here at the edge of sleep. Here where the thinking has become so thin and so slow that it is more like weather than thought. More like the suggestion of movement in perfectly still air than any purposeful motion. More like the last of the warmth from a fire that has already gone down to embers, radiating softly into the room, into the dark, into the body resting near it, received without effort, without gratitude even, only the pure and simple receiving that requires no participation from the self that receives. The self grows very quiet here. It does not disappear. It simply softens at its edges, the way everything softens at night, the way the outlines of furniture soften in a darkened room, the way the boundary between the body and the bed softens when the muscles have let go and the weight has fully given itself to the surface beneath it, no longer held, no longer managed, simply resting, simply there, simply breathing in the slow and easy way that breathing goes when no one is watching it, when it has been left to its own ancient wisdom, which is considerable, which is older than any teaching, which was the first teacher and will be the last. Breathing in and breathing out. The space between them growing a little larger now, a little softer, a little more like the space inside a bell after it has been struck, resonant and warm, and gradually, beautifully, completely still, settling into its own silence, the way you are settling into yours, the way the whole of this quiet room is settling, the walls and the dark and the covered and resting weight of the body, and the slow, soft tide of the breath, all settling together into something that is not quite sleep yet, and not quite waking, but is very near the border, very near the soft and unmarked line where one country becomes another, where the known becomes the dreamed, where the last of the deliberate thoughts trails away like the last of the smoke from a fire that has gone warmly and completely out, and the smoke itself has already become the air, has already joined the vast and unhurried breathing of everything, the way all things that end do not so much stop as spread, dissolving outward into the quiet medium that surrounds them, becoming part of the room, part of the night, part of the soft and patient dark that holds the room, the way water holds a stone at rest on the bottom of a still pool, completely, without effort, without any intention of release, only the holding, only the sustained and wordless presence of one thing cradling another. The stone does not know it is held. And perhaps that is the teaching, offered very gently, without insistence, the way the early wandering teachers offered everything, sitting in the shade of a tree in the afternoon warmth, speaking quietly to whoever had come to sit nearby, not summoning, not demanding, only speaking softly into the warm air and letting the words settle where they would, like seeds carried on a slow breeze that does not know where it is going and does not need to know, because the seeds themselves carry within them everything required for wherever they land, asking only for a little stillness, a little quiet, a little of the dark and the damp that allows things to open. There was a teaching about seeds, offered in just this spirit, about how a tiny thing holds within it the whole of what it will become, not as a plan, not as an intention, but as a simple and patient potential, the way sleep is held within wakefulness, even at the busiest hour, the way rest is held within effort, the way silence is held within every sound, already there, always there, needing only the conditions to emerge, and the conditions are only ever these: the slowing, the softening, the releasing of the held thing, the allowing of the weight to go where weight naturally goes, downward and inward, and into the quiet that waits below everything like a wide and welcoming depth. You are already in that depth, or nearly. The difference now is very small, almost too small to measure. The way the difference between almost sleep and sleep itself cannot be found from the inside, can only be noticed afterward. From the shore of the morning, looking back at the still water of the night, and knowing that you crossed it without knowing you crossed it. Without any experience of crossing, only the arriving, only the waking on the other side with some vague and gentle sense of having been somewhere soft and far away, somewhere without edges or demands, somewhere the mind went when it finally stopped looking for somewhere to go. This is what the teachings called the natural state, Though the words change across the long centuries of telling and retelling, the way a river changes its small surface features while the river itself remains, the direction and the depth and the essential nature of the flow remaining constant beneath all the rippling and the light play on the surface, beneath all the various ways the water catches the world and reflects it back. The natural state was not something to be achieved or constructed or arrived at through effort, because effort was already a moving away from it, already a turning toward the constructed and the sought, and the natural state was by definition what was already here before the seeking began, what would still be here when the seeking had grown tired and soft and laid itself down. Laying itself down, even the seeking lays itself down, eventually. Even the most restless quality of the mind finds, at the end of a long and full day, that it can no longer sustain its own motion, that the reaching has grown heavy, that the looking has grown dim, and in that dimming there is not loss, but something closer to relief. The relief of a hand that has been holding something carefully for a very long time and can now, at last, simply open. Simply let the held thing rest where it rests. Let it be where it is, without the hand's involvement, without the careful, continuous small adjustments that holding always requires. The hand opens. The breath deepens. Something in the center of the chest grows softer and wider at the same time, like a room whose walls have gently moved back, giving more space to the quiet air inside it. And in that space the heart beats with a slow and easy rhythm, unhurried, untroubled, carrying out its ancient work in the patient and unconscious way that all the body's oldest work is carried out, without consultation, without permission, without any need for the mind's involvement, the mind which is resting now, which is letting the body remember what it has always known, which is that the body needs no instruction from the mind to breathe, no instruction to rest, no instruction to allow the deep and chemical tides of sleep to move through it, like a warm and heavy weather, like a slow fog settling into a valley at the end of a long clear day, rolling in softly from the lower places, from the damp and quiet hollows, filling the space between the trees, softening all the outlines, making the familiar landscape into something gentle and imprecise and dreamlike, everything still there but blurred with kindness, held in the soft erasure of the mist. In the mist, things become very simple. The complexity that belongs to the sharp-edged daylight world, all the distinction and the detail and the particular, softens into a simpler thing, a general and unhurried presence, the way many sounds heard from a distance become one sound, the way many lights seen from far away become one soft glow, the way many thoughts at the trailing edge of sleep become one slow undulation, one gentle movement of something that is barely still thought, barely still anything nameable, only a warmth, only a heaviness, only a barely perceived drifting in a medium that is soft and dark and entirely without resistance. The teaching spoke of non-resistance, but gently, without making it into a practice or a discipline, because the moment it becomes a discipline, it becomes another thing to do, another way of efforting, and the whole point was the release from efforting, the discovery that the effort had never been necessary, that the river did not need to be pushed, that the breath did not need to be managed, that the mind, left entirely alone, would do what the mind naturally does when the conditions are right, which is simply to grow still, the way a cup of water grows still when you stop moving it. The stillness not imposed from outside, but arriving from within, from the nature of the water itself, which was always tending towards stillness, which had stillness as its deepest preference, its oldest inclination, and needed only the absence of disturbance to express it. You are the water. The room is still. Nothing is disturbing the surface now, or if there are very small disturbances, they are the kind that the water can absorb without losing its essential quiet, the way a pond absorbs a falling leaf, a small concentric spreading of rings that move outward gently and then are gone, the surface resuming its smooth and reflective quiet. And in the reflection only the sky, only the depth of the sky, reproduced in the depth of the water, one blue dark depth meeting another, the above and the below becoming briefly indistinguishable, and between them only a soft silvered plane of stillness, only the quiet interface between one depth and another, and at the center of the reflection the suggestion of stars beginning, or perhaps those are not stars but only the mind beginning its own slow light-making. The way the mind at the edge of sleep sometimes offers up small, sourceless illuminations, brief and gentle, without meaning to hold on to, without content that requires attention, only the soft phosphorescence of a mind growing warm and quiet in the dark. Warmth is another of the teachings. Though it arrives so gently, it is barely a teaching at all, more like a noticed thing, a quality observed without judgment. The way a traveler sitting by a fire at the end of a long road notices the warmth not as a concept, but as a pure and simple experience of the heat moving against the skin, moving through the cloth, moving into the tired muscles and the aching places, and allowing them to soften, to give up their careful guarding, to release the small held tensions that accumulate the way dust accumulates, gradually and invisibly, until they are let go, and you discover how much was being held, and how much lighter the body is without the holding. The body is lighter now. It has been settling for some time into the surface beneath it, each breath a small further release, each exhale a giving back of a little more of the weight, the slow transfer of the body's heaviness from the muscles into the bed, from the effort of holding into the ease of being held, and the surface holds everything without comment, without effort of its own, the way the earth holds everything that rests on it, the way the ground simply is what the ground is, solid and patient and entirely without agenda, offering only its presence, only the firm and steady fact of its being there, which is all that is needed, which has always been all that is needed, and the things that rest on it require nothing else, only this continued presence, this continued holding that is not a choice but a nature. To rest on something that is holding you without choosing to is a deep and particular kind of ease. There is no transaction in it, no exchange, no gratitude required, no awareness of debt. The held thing simply rests, and the holding thing simply holds, and between them, nothing passes, except the warmth that gathers, where two things are in close and patient contact. The kind of warmth that asks nothing of you, that does not need to be noticed to persist, that was there before you turned your attention to it, and will be there when the attention has drifted somewhere softer, somewhere less defined, somewhere in the warm and borderless country that the mind enters when the last of the day's purposes have released their grip, and the body has grown heavy enough to anchor the rest of the self to this place, this dark and quiet place, this warm and covered place that is yours, for exactly as long as you need it, and requires of you exactly nothing. Nothing is the word the teachings kept returning to, but slowly and with care, knowing that nothing sounds at first like an absence, like a lack, like something to be concerned about, when in fact it is the opposite of all of those things. It is a fullness so complete that it has no room for any particular thing, a presence so total that it cannot be pointed at because the pointing finger is also inside it. Everything inside it, the way everything in a room is inside the room, without the room being made of any of those things. The room being only the space, only the allowing, only the soft and invisible volume of the air, which holds the warmth and the quiet, and the slow breath, and the resting body, and the darkened ceiling, and the distant sound of night. All of these resting inside the room, the way the room itself rests inside the night. And the night rests inside a stillness larger than night. And the stillness is not empty. It is only very, very quiet, the way deep water is quiet, the way the space between stars is quiet, not with the quiet of nothing, but with the quiet of something so vast and so settled that it no longer requires movement to express itself, no longer reaches or pushes or tries, has long since arrived at wherever it was always already, and rests in that arriving with a completeness that the waking mind glimpses only in moments like this one, in the long, soft dissolving of the day's last thoughts, in the growing distance between one thought and the next, a distance that is itself a kind of peace, a kind of meadow, a wide and unhurried space, where the mind can stop its walking and lie down in the warm grass and look up at the sky which is not asking anything of it, the sky which simply continues its slow and gorgeous being, its patient revolution of light and dark and light again, and far below in the grass, the mind grows still, and the breath grows slow, and the warmth of the ground comes up through the body, and the warmth of the sky comes down through the air, and between them, the body rests in a gentle warmth on all sides, held, covered, completed, resting at the center of a world that for this moment is only warmth and quiet, and the slow, soft, slow turning of the world beneath the body, beneath the breath, beneath the last thin thread of awareness that is neither quite sleeping nor quite waking, but resting in the soft country between the two. The country that has no name in the teachings, because the teachings understood that naming a thing is a way of standing outside it. And this country cannot be stood outside of, can only be rested in, only be allowed, the way the body is allowing it now, the way the breath is allowing it. Each slow inhale a soft arrival, and each exhale a soft departure, and the space between them not empty, but full of a particular quality of stillness that the teachings described as the natural resting place of the mind, the place the mind was always moving toward without knowing it, the destination hidden inside every moment of the long day, present even in the crowded and effortful hours, waiting with a patience that is not waiting because it has nowhere else to be, nothing else to become, only this gentle and persistent availability, this open quality that the mind discovers when it finally stops moving and finds that what it was searching for was never ahead of it but underneath it, the way the ground is underneath the walking feet, always already there, always already holding, requiring only that the walking eventually slow and the body eventually come to rest, and the weight eventually be given over to what was always willing to receive it. And the teaching spoke of this in the gentlest of ways, not as an achievement, not as a destination that required effort to reach, but as a recognition, a simple and unhurried noticing, the way you might notice after a long time that the room has grown warm, not because anything changed in the moment of noticing, but because the noticing finally turned its soft attention in that direction and found what was already there, had always been there. The warmth that the room had been quietly holding all along, without announcement, without insistence. The warmth that was simply the nature of the enclosed and sheltered space. The warmth that belonged to being inside rather than outside, to being covered rather than exposed, to being at rest rather than in motion. And the noticing of it is its own kind of warmth. A warmth inside the warmth, the gentle pleasure of awareness touching something that is already good, already soft, already asking nothing, and in that touching, finding itself also softened, also quieted, also drawn down into the same quality of stillness that it found in the thing it touched, the way two still things touching become more still together than either was alone. This is something the teachings return to with great gentleness, the way certain slow rivers return to the same bend, not because they are lost, but because the bend is where the current naturally carries the water, where the shape of the land invites the flow to curve and slow and pool a little, before continuing, and the water in that pooling is neither moving nor entirely still, but resting in a kind of in-between that is its own quality, its own particular piece, and the surface of that pooling water is smooth and dark, and reflects the sky with a clarity that the rushing water cannot manage, the rushing water too busy with its own motion to hold the image. But the slow and pooling water holds the sky perfectly, holds the clouds as they drift in their unhurried way, holds the soft and blurred impression of the trees at the bank, holds all of this gently and without effort, without trying to keep any of it, knowing that the reflection will change as the clouds move and the light shifts and the trees move in some slow breath of air, and being entirely at peace with that changing, the water not attached to any particular reflection, only available, only present, only offering its stillness as a surface for whatever the sky wishes to show it, and in that availability finding its own kind of completeness, its own soft sufficiency. The mind growing quiet now is like that surface. The thoughts that were moving through it all day long, the urgencies and the rememberings and the small unfinished things, have begun to slow, have begun to drift to the edges, the way sediment drifts to the edges of slow water, and the center of the mind is clearing, is becoming more like that smooth and dark reflecting surface, less like the rushing and more like the pooling, less like the effort and more like the ease. And in this clearing there is nothing lost, nothing absent, only the discovery of what was underneath the movement all along, the quiet that the movement was resting on, the stillness that was always the ground of everything, the way the riverbed is the ground of the river, present beneath all the rushing and the turning and the white water and the deep and silent currents, the riverbed simply lying there in the cool dark beneath it all, patient and unhurried, made of stone and time and the slow accumulation of all the small things that have come to rest in that quiet place. And something in the teachings understood the particular piece of deep water, of the layers that exist below the surface where the wind cannot reach, where the light arrives only as a soft and diffused glow, with no direction, no sharp edge, no clear source. Only a gentle luminescence that filters down through the upper water and loses its particularity in the filtering, and becomes simply brightness without origin, warmth without heat, a soft seeing that requires no eyes, that the body of the water receives not as light, but as a kind of presence, a kind of company, the sky making itself known to the deep by sending this soft emissary of brightness down through all the layers, and the deep receiving it without urgency, without reaching up to meet it, simply being available to it as it arrives. And in this there is a kind of conversation that is also a kind of silence, a kind of exchange that asks nothing of either party, that simply is, the way the breath simply is, moving in and out of its own accord, the body neither making it nor stopping it, but only being the place where it happens, the warm and resting place where the breath arrives and departs in its slow and patient rhythm. And the rhythm does not need to be attended to, does not need to be counted or controlled, only allowed, only received, the way the deep water receives the light. The teachings offered many images for the mind that has grown quiet, and they were always images of depth, of settling, of the natural movement of things toward their resting place, a stone in water, a bird returning to a branch at the end of its long day of flying, a flame burning low and steady in a sheltered place where no wind can find it, the flame very small and very still, almost more light than flame, almost more warmth than burning, and around it the soft circle of its glow touching the nearest things with a dim and amber tenderness, not illuminating so much as accompanying, not revealing so much as being present with, the way a kind companion is present in a room, without needing to speak, without needing to do anything, only being there, only being warm. And the quality of the room is entirely changed by this presence, softer, more complete, more at ease with its own quiet. The silence in the room not empty but inhabited, held between two presences that understand each other, without needing to explain anything, without needing to reach toward each other, resting simply in the fact of being in the same warm and sheltered place, at the same slow hour of the night. And the night itself is one of the teachings, though it was never spoken of as a lesson, only as a space, only as a large and patient environment in which the small and tired things could rest, the night not asking anything of what rests inside it, the night not even aware, in the way that awareness requires a center, and the night has no center. The night is all circumference, all periphery, all the soft and open edge of things, and in this edgelessness there is a particular kind of freedom, the freedom of not being looked at, of not being defined, of being allowed to blur at the boundaries and become less distinct and more continuous with the surrounding dark, less a separate thing and more a resting part of a larger thing, and the larger thing is patient and is quiet and is in no hurry for morning, the larger thing content to remain exactly as it is, for exactly as long as it is, and this contentment, this unhurried acceptance of what simply is perhaps the deepest teaching of all, the teaching underneath all the other teachings, the ground note beneath all the other notes, and it sounds like the body sounds, when the body has fully released, a low and quiet hum of simply being, a vibration too slow and too deep to be called sound, but felt instead, felt in the chest, felt in the heavy and warm limbs, felt in the soft and loosening jaw, and the slow and unhurried breath, a resonance that was always there, and that the quiet at last makes available to something deeper than hearing. Let the jaw be soft now. Let the shoulders be heavy. Let the breath do what the breath knows how to do without any help from the thinking. The breath entirely capable, entirely sufficient, entirely its own slow wisdom, and the thinking can rest, can set down the small instruments of its attention, the fine and careful tools it carries through the day, and place them gently beside the bed, the way you place a lamp on a table, no longer needed, not lost, only resting, only waiting for morning in their quiet way, and the thinking itself can follow the breath downward into the same slow territory where the breath has already arrived, where the body has already been resting for some time, patient, waiting for the thinking to catch up, the body always closer to sleep than the mind, the body always ready a little sooner, having its own wisdom about rest, its own animal knowledge of the night, and when the thinking finally loosens its grip and allows itself to be carried down, the body receives it without ceremony, simply makes room, the way a warm bed makes room, the way the dark makes room, the way the quiet makes room for whatever finally arrives inside it. In the teachings there is a word that some have translated as release, and others as opening, and others as simply letting go, and none of these translations is entirely wrong, because the thing they are pointing at contains all of them, and is also quieter than any of them, is the thing that happens after the letting go, when there is nothing left to let go of, and the hands are open, and the chest is open, and the breath moves freely through an open and unhurried body, and the mind rests at the surface of itself, like the leaf rests at the surface of the water, neither sinking nor floating with effort, but simply being where it is, held by the surface tension of the present moment, which is itself very thin and very gentle, requiring nothing of the leaf except its own lightness. And the leaf is light, the mind is light now, lighter than it was an hour ago, lighter than it was at the beginning of the night, lighter with each slow breath, each release, each soft and gentle dissolution of a boundary that no longer needs to be maintained. And the dissolution is not a loss, it is an opening. It is the room becoming larger, the night becoming softer, the body becoming less a thing with edges and more a warmth, more a gentle heat that blends at its periphery with the warmth of the blanket and the warmth of the dark, and the warmth that the night itself holds close to the earth in the quiet hours, the warmth that rises from the ground slowly and settles over sleeping things like a second blanket, like the breath of the earth itself, slow and warm and barely perceptible, only felt in the deepest quiet, only received by the body that has grown still enough and open enough and heavy enough to receive such a subtle and generous thing. You belong entirely to the night now. Let the last thoughts drift the way smoke drifts from a candle that has just been extinguished, rising slowly, dispersing, becoming nothing, becoming air, becoming the quiet room. The room is very quiet, the breath is very slow. There is nothing to hold, nothing to remember, only this warmth, only this dark, only this slow and gentle breath, arriving, departing, arriving, departing, each arrival a little softer, each departure a little more complete, the body releasing something with every out-breath that it does not need to take back, some last small tension, some last faint trace of the day, releasing it into the dark, where it dissolves without a sound, without leaving anything behind. There is nothing left to release now. The hands are open, the chest is open, the breath moves freely. The thinking has grown very quiet, almost still. Let it be still. Let the last word be the breath. Let the last thought be warmth. Let the warmth be enough. It is enough. The night holds you, gently. The breath continues on its own. You are already there.